morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zimbabwe has had a lot of drama today. At 12 midnight last night, Professor Mandaza, SAPES, was firebombed. Today, they were supposed to be holding a press conference where a number of opposition leaders were going to be present, including some of the gentlemen we see in this video. And no doubt it was firebombed to stop that press conference. So they had to go to another venue to have their press conference. And as we'll see in this video as well, they were followed up by the police and chased out. The press conference was booked to discuss this issue of the ED 2030 agenda, Mnangagwa's drive to try to stay in power beyond the 2028 elections. Why all this drama, you might ask? But that is precisely the reason why Zimbabwe is a failed state. Zimbabwe has failed to hold free, fair, and credible elections, and hence has been stuck with this corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical ZANU-PF regime for 45 years and counting. The other interesting drama is today, President Emmerson Mnangagwa was scheduled to hold his State of the Nation address in Parliament. And there was a power cut. Underlying that this whole vision of Vision 2030, where the country will be an upper middle income nation, which is his justification for staying on because he's the only man capable of delivering it, is a mirage. I'll just show you the video clip of the press conference by the opposition leaders.
Peacefully, lawfully, and in solidarity with all citizens. The liberation struggle was fought so that Zimbabweans could choose their leaders freely. Those who fell did not die for endless tenure. They died for self-government, for dignity, for a constitution that speaks for the people. To honor their sacrifice, we must now protect the constitution. This is not rebellion, it is responsibility. Fellow citizens, the so-called 2030 agenda is not about development. It is about the extension of power in a nation already weary from repression and inequality. Politically, it means an extension of authoritarianism, an extension of fear, an extension of opportunity, and an extension of injustice. That is the future we must fight against. We must remember, strong nations are not built by those who agree on everything, but by those who choose to work together despite their disagreements. The measure of our patriotism is not uniformity, but unity of purpose. the shared resolve to defend that which binds us together, the Constitution. In humility and in solidarity with the leaders gathered here today, I join hands with fellow citizens to build a common non-partisan platform for the defense of our Constitution. This is a people's initiative that belongs to no party and serves no individual interest. Only the Republic.
Brave words indeed. The tragedy here is this press conference was meant to be at SAPES, but they had to move it because SAPES was firebombed last night. This video clip runs for about 2 hours, but actually others would have shown that even this gathering was disrupted. The police in riot gear came and told them that it had to be stopped. Let me say clearly that this is a tragedy. We should allow citizens to have their say in the governance of the country. Why are they being harassed? Why is SAPES being firebombed? This is the problem we have with this regime. And it must be stated clearly and loudly that this is totally unacceptable. We have been here before where we cannot have a meaningful exchange of ideas because the regime feels that any such gathering is a threat to its own iron grip on power. This is what it's all about. I think it is heartbreaking that 45 years after independence, we are still stuck with a political system that does not tolerate dissent, that does not allow the ordinary people to have a meaningful say in the governance of the country. This is truly tragic. We are going nowhere with this system. And that is the truth. It is interesting to note that today the president was also having his State of the Nation address in Parliament. He went there and in trying to address the nation, there was a power cut. This is an important building, and yet power could not be guaranteed. I think the event itself underlines the real serious problems in Zimbabwe. If Parliament can have power cuts, what more of the private individual? Some people, of course, will tell you in Zimbabwe that they've had no power, have power cuts on a regular basis. in most places in Harare itself and other cities, it is quite normal to have power maybe 3 or 4 hours every day. The rest, load shedding. In other areas, you'll be switched off for days or weeks on end. Street lights is something that some people have gotten altogether. In his speech, no doubt, the president would have been talking about how successful, what he has achieved in the last 12 months. And what more he was planning to achieve in the coming year. How many times have Zimbabweans been told that the regime had addressed the problem of power cuts? Each time the regime commissioned a unit at Wanke power station, for instance, the news will be exaggerated to the point where the commissioning of that unit is considered to be the solution to all the country's problems. The parousia. That Zimbabwe would not have to worry about power cuts anymore. And indeed, in some cases, the regime would even go to the extent of boasting that from now on, the country will be exporting excess power. And yet here we are. There's no power. Mnangagwa is using the argument, or rather the regime is using the argument that Mnangagwa has achieved so much and is destined to deliver the country from the poor state that it is in now, one of the poorest countries, to become an upper middle income nation by 2030. This is the promise. And the whole point of this ED 2030 is premised on the argument that he is the man who will deliver the economic prosperity for the nation by 2030. Here is the party leader announcing this ED 2030 agenda after the party conference last week.
Now, therefore, be it resolved by the delegates to the ZANU-PF 22nd National People's Conference as follows. State of the party. On the state of the party, that whereas the 21st National People's Conference of ZANU-PF held on 26 October 2024 in Bulawayo resolved as follows. In recognition of the extensive developmental milestones and the significant socio-economic progress achieved under the leadership of the President and First Secretary of ZANU-PF, His Excellency Comrade Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, it is resolved that his term of office as President of the Republic of Zimbabwe be extended beyond 2028 to 2030. The party...
In other words, the party resolved that he should stay in power because of the great achievements he has made. The truth of the matter is, there are none. This problem of power cuts only exemplifies that problem. And yet the nation is being told that it should be allowed to stay in power for more of this. Zimbabwe is a failed state. And I think the number one priority here should be to restore every Zimbabwean's right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country. As much as Tendai Biti and the other guys are focusing on ED 2030 agenda, I think they should not narrow their fight to just ED 2030. This fight should be a broad front. It should be a fight to restore the basic right of every citizen to a meaningful say in the governance of the country. It should be a fight for free, fair, and credible elections. There is a subtle difference there. The problem here, I believe, is that ZANU-PF want it to be focusing on amending the constitution to allow him to stay. That is what the regime wants to fight. This is the front where it wants to fight. In terms of rigging the amendment, it is much easier to rig the amendment. Indeed, some of the legal teams have already said Mnangagwa stay in office beyond 2028 can be done without a referendum. That is the argument by some people. And no doubt ZANU-PF, if he's genuinely determined to stay, would want to go down that route. ZANU-PF does not want to go into 2028 elections. Because although the party can rig the elections, they cannot guarantee that they will have the legitimacy. That is a very important point to remember. 2023 elections, SADC and the AU condemned that process as flawed. The only reason why SADC and the AU did not go the step further and deny ZANU-PF legitimacy is because the opposition, Nelson Chamisa and his Chamisa Chete Brigade, participated in that election process in their millions. Our task should be to focus on that, to make sure that that is not repeated ever again. If we were to achieve that, I believe we will also achieve stopping Mnangagwa amending the constitution. Because even if he does amend the constitution, if ZANU-PF 2028 elections, they are denied legitimacy, he cannot be president of a party that has been declared illegitimate, as happened in 2008. The country will then be forced into a new GNU. And he knows, just as much as everybody else in ZANU-PF knows, that while ZANU-PF managed to get away with no reforms implemented in 2008 to 2013, they cannot have the confidence that that will happen again. For the simple reason that the people are now aware of what happened in the first GNU. And SONA, we've got a saying that Tsuraiponi Rutsakaviri. The fight here is not about ED 2030 or about stopping him amending the constitution. Important those events as they are. The fight has got to be to stop ZANU-PF rigging the 2028 elections and getting away with legitimacy. Win that fight, and you would have won the ED 2030 as well. The biggest problem we have here is that we've got an opposition that is already itching for a fight. And ZANU-PF is conveniently picking which fight the nation should be involved in. The Constitution amendment will have no effect at all if ZANU-PF was to lose political legitimacy in 2028. That is what we should be focusing on. But let me finish by emphasizing that as much as I do not agree with the opposition leaders who are already mobilizing to take on ZANU-PF to fight the issue of ED 2030 agenda, I unreservedly condemn the regime's response, firebombing Professor Mandaza's SAPES, disrupting the opposition leaders' press conference. But I'm not surprised that the regime is doing that. I believe the regime is doing that deliberately because it wants the whole nation to focus on that issue. That is the front they want to fight, and they will do everything in their power to make sure that that is the front the nation focuses on. This is not the first time the regime has done that. In the early 2000s, they did that with the land issue. Instead of elections being about, let's have free, fair, and credible election, the regime would drum up the land issue by invading farms, beating and even killing people, so that the land issue was on the nation agenda. The elections were not about free, fair, and credible elections, but about the land issue. And many of us have asked, why should it be about the land issue? The millions of ordinary Zimbabweans do not own any land. All they want is the right to have a meaningful say in the governance of the country. But ZANU-PF would not allow that to happen. The opposition was then forced into defending the white farmers, so that the regime then can turn around and say, you see, The opposition are only interested in fighting the land issue because they want to give the white men the land back. Mnangagwa is doing the same thing here. He doesn't want to fight about free, fair, and credible elections. He wants everything to focus on whether or not he's got the right to amend the constitution by hook or by crook to stay in power for 2 more years. This is not the fight we want, but this is the fight that ZANU-PF want. And we'll be foolish to allow ourselves to be drawn into that fight, because I can rest assure you, we want to occupy the moral high ground, and we should not allow ourselves to be dragged, to be pulled away from the moral high ground of free, fair, and credible elections. But it will be very difficult to persuade some of our opposition leaders who are already itching for a fight. Think about it. I'd like to encourage those listeners out there who have got the time to join us on Saturdays and Sundays, and use the link at the bottom of the screen there to express their views. We welcome the discussion. That link will be used every Saturday and every Sunday. It will be at 6 o'clock UK time or 8 o'clock Zimbabwe time. I hope you'll be able to join us. The rest of the week on this channel will be on the air 6 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Zimbabwean time. And if you've got any comments, please post them on whichever channel you are using, be it X, YouTube, or Facebook. And we'll try to respond to as many of the comments as we can. But again, like I said, if you want to follow up your own comments and have your views expressed, join us on Saturday or Sunday on the link that we gave you earlier on. Thank you very much, those of you who were able to join us. I conclude by emphasizing the point that the fight we are facing as a nation, the real big fight, is to make sure that elections are free, fair, and credible. The ED 2030 is at best a skirmish. And we don't want to lose the battle, or win a skirmish, or win a battle, but lose the war. We must focus on winning the war. Think about it. Thank you very much again. Have a good night.